Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An episode of Nightbeat starring Frank Lovejoy as reporter Randy Stone from 73 years ago, May 29th, 1950, the story of Harlan Matthews, a stamp dealer. And we thank you for tuning in on this Monday. This is the 19th day of May, 149th day of the year, and we have 216 days remaining. Two members of the Jackson family celebrate their birthdays today. One had a hit back in 1984. Can you know who it was? And also a question for you today. Who were the first people to reach the top of Mount Everest? We'll talk about that in a few moments. Patrick Henry bitterly denounced the Stamp Act in the Virginia House of Burgesses in 1765. 1790, Rhode Island became the 13th state of the Union, the last of the original colonies to ratify the Constitution. Wisconsin became state number 30 on this date in 1848. John Kennedy, born in Brookline, Massachusetts on this date in 1917, he who would become president. Construction of Hoover Dam completed on this date in 1935, near Las Vegas. Bing Crosby recorded his version of White Christmas on this date in 1942. It would go on to sell 30 million copies. On this date in 1999, Space Shuttle Discovery completed the first docking with the International Space Station. 2004, the National World War II Memorial dedicated in Washington. In 2005, France, one of the founders of a united Europe, resoundingly rejected the European Constitution, throwing the idea of a European Union into question and leaving the continent in a state of anxiety and uncertainty.
I think what's important now is to have a time for reflection. We have the Dutch referendum in a couple of days' time. There will be the European Council in the middle of June, where all the leaders can discuss the implications of the votes that have taken place. But I think that underneath all this, there is a more profound question, which is about the future of Europe, and in particular the future of the European economy, and how it deals with the modern pressures of globalization and technological change, and how we ensure that the European economy is strong and is prosperous in the face of those challenges. Now, underlying all these debates about the Constitution is, I think, that central economic challenge.
British Prime Minister Tony Blair. One World Observatory at One World Trade Center opened on this date in 2015. And in 2021, a Cessna Citation ISP crashed into Percy Priest Lake in Tennessee, killing all 6 people on board, including actor Joe Lara and his wife, Gwendolyn Shamblin Lara. And on this date in 1953, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay became the first to reach the summit of Mount Everest for his accomplishment in scaling that 29,000-foot peak. Hillary knighted by the Queen of England on July 16th of that year. Passing away on this date in history, actor John Barrymore, actress Dame May Whitty, Fanny Brice, and it was such an unexpected passing. And that night on her radio show, she was paid a great tribute to. Also, pro wrestler Man Mountain Dean, Canadian, he was a big guy. Yeah, that's why the name. Actress Mary Pickford passing away on this date. Fine announcer George Fenneman. Arizona Senator, presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. Also actor-comedian Harvey Korman. Actor, director, screenwriter Dennis Hopper. The very delightful Betsy Palmer. B.J. Thomas with Raindrops Falling on My Head, and passing away also in 2021 from The Love Boat and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Christian activist Gavin MacLeod. Born on this date, we have patriot, statesman, orator Patrick Henry, author and war correspondent Max Brand, Stacy Keach Sr., comedian, actor Bob Hope.
The 4th of July. I used to refer to it as Independence Day before I got married. When I was a kid, we always had fireworks on July the 4th. We used to tie a 20-pound firecracker to a box of dynamite and then drop it down a well. Don't laugh. That's how the Grand Canyon got started. And once on July 4th, the kids tied my brother to a 6-foot skyrocket and set it off. That's how he got to California 20 years before I did.
Born in England, Bob Hope did a lot for the American people and a lot for the American soldier. Bob Hope, born on this date in history. Also born on this date, the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
In the final analysis, it's their war. They're the ones who have to win it or lose it. We can help them. We can give them equipment. We can send our men out there as advisors, but they have to win it, the people of Vietnam, against the communists. We're prepared to continue to assist them. But I don't think that the war can be won unless the people support the effort. And in my opinion, in the last 2 months, the government has gotten out of touch with the people.
Do you think that this government still has time to regain the support of the people?
With changes in policy and perhaps with in personnel, I think it can. If it doesn't make those changes, I would think that the chances of winning it would not be very good.
Walter Cronkite speaking with President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, born on this date back in 1917. From Luke and Laura fame from General Hospital, Anthony Geary, 76 today. She had a big hit, Centipede, back in 1984. Rebby Jackson of the Jackson family, 73 years old today. Younger sister LaToya turned 67 today. Known as a musician and a composer from Oingo Boingo and the Tim Burton films, Danny Elfman, 70 years old today. John Hinckley Jr., the attempted Reagan assassin, 68 today. He's living with his mother as he was reduced from institutional psychiatric care in 2016. Also born on this date in history, Warren Beatty's ex-wife, Annette Benning, 65. From My Best Friend's Wedding, Rupert Everett, 64. From Highlander, Adrian Paul, 64. Musician Melissa Etheridge, 62. From The Facts of Life, Lisa Welchel is 60 today.
It's kind of like your friends from high school. You know, you're so close, and then when you do see each other, even if it's been years, you jump right back into that relationship. But we do keep in touch.
Talking about her friends from The Facts of Life. She did have a show on MeTV called Collector's Call. I think it's still going on. Lisa Welchel, 60 today. Mel B of the Spice Girls, 48 today. And a couple of pro wrestlers to wrap it up. Pro wrestler Brian Kendrick, the Brian Kendrick, 44 today. And a cousin of The Rock, Nia Jax, 39. Those just a few of the people celebrating the 29th day of May as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
From 73 years ago today, May 29th, 1950... it's Frank Lovejoy starring in Nightbeat on this Monday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. One of the questions I run into often is, why do we have so many copies of Lum and Abner? Why do we have so many copies of Jack Benny, Fibber McGee and Molly, The Great Gildersleeve, Dragnet, and yet we have very few copies of shows like Nightbeat? And it's a very important reason and something that people fail to understand. It's all about money. See, Nightbeat was a sustaining show. I think this particular episode had Wheaties as the sponsor. Very rare that Nightbeat had a sponsor. But many of these shows that were sustaining shows, they were not transcribed, and a lot of copies were not kept of the shows before, say, 1950. And that's why a lot of great shows are lost, or we have very poor quality copies of those shows remaining to this day. We do have some good copies of Nightbeat. Let's listen to this one from 73 years ago, May 29th, 1950. Frank Lovejoy as Randy Stone in Nightbeat.
On stage tonight from Hollywood, Nightbeat, another in the Wheaties' big parade of exciting half-hour presentations. Nightbeat.
Hi, this is Randy Stone. I cover the Nightbeat for the Chicago Star. Stories begin in many different ways. This one began and ended with a confession to the crime of murder.
Nightbeat, starring Frank Lovejoy as Randy Stone.
You can't keep a finger on a city's pulse without having some of its sweat and tears rub off on you. But sometimes the difference between turning a corner or going straight ahead, opening a door or passing it by, is all that separates safety from danger, horror from happiness, or life from death. Tonight, the difference lay in whether I should or should not get a shave before starting on my nightly tour of duty. I decided on the shave. Usually I go to a barber shop on the 5th floor of the Conway building in the heart of the Loop. By the time I got there, however, it was after 6 and the elevator operators had all gone. 2 of the lifts were still operating on a self-service basis, so I got in one and pushed the button for the 5th floor. The elevator was almost to the 4th floor level when a sudden yelling drew my attention to the little window in the elevator door.
You're wrong. You're wrong. I haven't told anyone.
I pressed the emergency stop. A tall, thin-faced man had been lunging at someone out of vision. If there was ever murder on a man's face, it was on his.
I saw you talking to the FBI. You told them. I didn't. I was only trying to help you.
I brought the elevator down to the floor level without stopping to think what I might be getting myself into. When the doors opened, I saw them rolling around the corridor ahead in a desperate struggle. The tall man was on top, his left hand flailing at the other's face with a briefcase, while with his right he was trying to drive a long, thin blade into the other's chest.
Help! Don't! Harlan, please!
Hey, drop that knife! The human beanpole saw me coming and scrambled to his feet.
So he told you to, huh? He told you?
Look, pal.
I'll kill him.
Take it easy.
Take your hands off me. I'll kill you!
He slashed at my face. As I threw up my arm, the point of his blade snagged in my sleeve and jerked out of his hands. He darted for the elevator, and I ran after him in the best tradition of Frank Merriwell saving the game for dear old Yale. My form may have been all-American, but my flying tackle was all wet. His heel caught me in the head, and I fell on my face, lost in the stars.
Are you hurt?
Oh, no, I'm just stupid. Every time I try to borrow trouble, I always find my credit screwed.
Here, let me help you up. I'm terribly sorry.
Oh, thank you. I'm all right. How about you?
No, he didn't hurt me.
Well, he was sure trying. He a friend of yours?
Will you come into my office and let me dress that bruise on your cheek? I'm Dr. Reichel.
Well, I'm Randy Stone. You better give the police a ring right away. That fella's a maniac. Who is he, anyway?
Oh, he's one of my patients. That's my office over there.
Now, one moment. Let's not forget our evidence. This knife he dropped.
Well, it isn't a knife. It's a letter opener. He took it off my desk.
A letter opener?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's different. What was he trying to do? Open you with it?
Oh, now, please, come in. I'll put something on that bruise and try to explain.
Thank you.
Let's see, a little methylate should fix that up.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how deeply I appreciate what you did.
Oh, it was nothing. He was only trying to kill you.
Will you hold still a moment? There. You see, the man is my patient, a disordered personality.
Are you an alienist, Doctor?
Yes, my field is psychiatry.
But from what I saw, your patient is more than a disordered personality. He's a homicidal maniac.
Now, Mr. Stone.
Well, aren't you going to call the police? Or do I have to?
Oh, please. No, what happened was just an accident.
An accident? This hole in my sleeve wasn't made by Moz, Doctor. He tried to knife me, too, remember?
Well, only because he identified you with me. Now, it's not too unusual in a case of this sort for a patient to transfer his persecution complexes against the doctor who is treating him.
Oh, yes, but...
But what happened tonight is entirely my fault. I was so encouraged over certain other developments that I overlooked the extent of his immediate hysteria.
So, what happens if he comes back and kills you? Do you, get a medal?
No, he won't try. Not again. I can assure you. But all I ask is that you don't report this incident. To have him arrested would destroy my chances of curing the poor fellow. Now, you won't, will you?
Well, okay, Doc. You probably know what you're doing, I hope. Who is he, anyway? What's his name?
Now, Mr. Stone, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, Doc. They say a guy is only as big as the things that annoy him. And he's kind of tough when the annoyance is 6'4" and has a knife that makes him even bigger. Well, it just goes to show you. A few seconds earlier, a few seconds later, I'd have gone right up and had a shave from a barber. As it was, I arrived just in time for a close shave at the hands of fate. She was at my elbow again, I guess, when I took the elevator back down into the lobby. Only this time, fate was in the flesh, and a lot of it.
Oh, excuse me. Hey, you dropped this yet?
What?
This briefcase. I was cleaning him back when I see you come in. When I come out, this briefcase is lying by the elevator. I just finished cleaning, so I know it's not here before. It's yours?
Harlan Matthews.
Huh?
Just looking at the name stamped on the leather. No, it isn't mine, but I know whose it is. It's one of Dr. Reichel's patients upstairs. I'll be glad to go up again and bring it to him.
Oh, thank you. I'm late finishing here already.
Harlan Matthews. I'd heard the doctor call him Harlan. It was the same man and the same briefcase he'd been using to bash Dr. Reichel over the head. As the elevator doors opened on the 4th floor, the doors of another elevator slammed shut and started down. I found Dr. Reichel's office locked and the light out. Obviously, he'd just left. I went down to the street level again, but the city had swallowed him up. I looked inside the briefcase. It contained a heavy album of foreign stamps belonging to Harlan Matthews. A phone book in the corner drugstore showed 2 numbers for Matthews, his home and his business. I tried his home.
Hello?
I'd like to speak to Harlan Matthews.
Oh, he's not in. Is there any message?
Is this Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Your husband left a briefcase in the Conway building
The
and...
Conway building. Have you seen him there? This isn't Dr. Reichel, is it?
No, Mrs. Matthews. My name is Stone. However, I did see your husband at Dr. Reichel's office just a little while
Well, I just phoned there.
Well, you must have just missed him.
Well, where is Harlan now? He's coming home, isn't he?
Have you tried his office?
Well, there's no answer. Isn't he coming home?
Well, that I don't know. Dr. Reichel may be able to tell you.
Oh, I've been trying to get him at his home for the last 2 hours. He never keeps his office open this late. I just called him on the bare chance that he might be there.
Oh. Mrs. Matthews, why does your husband hate Dr. Reichel?
Oh, well, Harlan is sick. He doesn't know what he's saying.
Well, then, what does he imagine?
I don't know. He won't tell me. It's since the war. It's something to do with the war, something that happened. I don't know what it is. He's sick.
Yes, of course, Mrs. Matthews. Well, I'll drive over with the briefcase. I just called to be sure that somebody'd be home. The Matthews lived in a small apartment on the north side. I barely touched the doorbell before I heard her footsteps almost running to open it.
Oh.
She was a faded little woman just this side of middle age. Behind her in a crib, a baby was crying. Mrs. Matthews, I'm Randy Stone. The briefcase...
Mr. Stone, I need help.
What's wrong, the baby?
No, it's Harlan. He just phoned. He's at his office. The way he talks, I think he's going to kill himself. Please, you're a friend of his, aren't you? You've just got to stop him.
All right, where's your telephone?
Why?
Well, the police can get to him a lot quicker than we can.
No, he warned me that if I sent Dr. Reichel to the police, he'd kill them and himself.
Well, okay then, let's go.
Oh, my baby.
If we're not too late already.
Oh, I can't. My baby is so sick. I just can't leave her. I can't.
All right, Mrs. Matthews, it's all right. You stick here. I'll handle it. Harlan Matthews' business address was a 3rd-floor shop in a 3rd-class shopping district. The dry goods store on the street level was still open for business. Its long awning still hung over the sidewalk in memory of the recent May Day sunshine. The windows above it were all dark, except one on the 3rd floor. The lettering on it read, H. Matthews, Stamps Bought and Sold. I climbed 2 flights to the 3rd-floor landing. The doors of the stamp emporium were half open. Inside, Harlan Matthews was seated at a desk, his thin, bloodless face seeming to stare straight at me. But the light was in his eyes, and I knew he couldn't see too much. Not until I got inside, anyway. Hello, Mr. Matthews.
Yes, what is it?
I found a briefcase with your name on it.
Huh? Well, where is it?
Your wife has it. I gave it to her.
You came here just to tell me that?
Well, not entirely.
Oh, I see. She sent you here.
Well, look, Mr. Matthews, you have a... Keep your hands on the desk. Don't do it. Drop it. Drop that gun.
Let go! Let go, you fool! I'm using the gun on myself!
You're not using it on anybody. Drop it! Drop it!
May 29th, 1950, Nightbeat on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Maybe you can't figure it out. I'll explain after the break why having a sponsor made a difference with these shows being around for so long. But right now, the news from 73 years ago today follows this break when Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox continues. Just going to take a minute here to tell you about the big savings going on now, the clearance sale at MyPillow.com. And you know, I've talked about how in my office I have a pair of My Slippers, and they're really comfortable, and they're on clearance right now. The MyPillow.com slippers, $25 a pair, limit 10. And I would buy 3 or 4 more pairs. Unfortunately, they're out of my size. They also have sheets, pillowcases, clothing items, all on special right now. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the clearance tab at the top of the page, use my promo code Wyatt, or call 1-800-928-4715. Limited sizes remaining in the MyPillow slippers, limited colors on other items. MyPillow.com, clearance tab, promo code Wyatt, 1-800-928-4715. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. So why does it make a difference if these shows have sponsors that they're preserved? And it's something that maybe you didn't think about or maybe you weren't aware of. And I'll explain it very plainly and simply. Advertisers, the people who advertised on these shows, got copies of the shows. They did. They would make transcription copies of the shows, and many times the advertisers would retain them. In fact, that's why we have so very many Fibber, McGee, and Molly shows, because Johnson Wax kept all of them. And then when it went to Pet Milk, they weren't kept as much. And then, it was basically Fibber preserving them for the last few months of the show, or last few years of the show. Anyway, we're listening to Nightbeat, starring Frank Lovejoy as Randy Stone, as it was broadcast Monday, May 29, 1950. Newspapers of that Monday, 73 years ago, these were some of the headlines. Secretary of State Dean Acheson's deals at the Big Three meeting in London may have cleared the way for secret Cold War negotiations with Russia. That according to Washington observers. Acheson reports to President Truman personally today on the London Parley and to a joint Senate-House session on Wednesday. He'll also give a first-hand account of North Atlantic Alliance decisions. Congress heads into its 6th month of work this week, with the odds increasing daily that President Truman's remaining legislative proposals are dead pigeons until next year. Senator Robert Taft, the Republican of Ohio, the policy leader, said yesterday the lawmakers may pass only 4 more major bills and a handful of lesser measures before heading for home and the fall congressional elections. North Carolinians speculated last night whether liberal Frank P. Graham would automatically retain his Senate seat. Raleigh lawyer Willis Smith held the answer, but he would not say. Smith won the right Saturday to ask for a Democrat runoff primary with Graham. He trailed far behind the former president of the University of North Carolina. No majority was registered in the four-cornered race. A record vote was cast. If Smith wants the runoff, he must say so by June 12th. Senate crime investigators revealed yesterday their surprise inquiry in Miami established a definitive link between certain Florida gamblers and underworld characters in other states. The statement made to the United Press by Senator Lester C. Hunt, the Democrat of Wyoming, member of the Special Crime Investigating Committee, which made an unheralded trip to the Southern Winter Playground this weekend, saying we accomplished our aim of establishing that there is a definitive interstate aspect to gambling operations. Mae West plans to build a $1 million casino and theater restaurant in Las Vegas, Desert Resort, and run it herself. Her attorney, Charles Katz, said Mae will go to Las Vegas at the close of her current show in Boston next month. She plans to call it Mae West Diamond Lil Casino and Restaurant. High income taxes on businesses and individuals are a breeder of price increases and the biggest tax obstacle to industrial growth. That according to a Brookings Institute study. The study, based on reports from business firms and prepared by economist Louis H. Kimmel, suggests some moderate tax changes now to be followed gradually by deeper cuts as federal finances improve. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Monday, May 29, 1950, on your radio Nightbeat, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
I'll take that. Sorry I had to hurt you, Matthews, but you're a lot better off alive than dead, believe me.
Why, so you can arrest me?
Arrest you? What makes you think I'm a cop?
Don't think I'm so blind that I didn't recognize you when you came in here. You tried to jump me at Reichel's office tonight. Waiting out in the corridor. You think I didn't know what was going on? That Reichel had ratted on me.
You've got the doc all wrong.
Oh, I have I? It's if I couldn't see through this stupid act of yours. You and Dr. Reichel trying to help me too, aren't you? All I have to do is talk, don't I? Just relax and talk. Well, what would you like to hear?
Look, friend, you don't have to tell me a thing.
Yes, why repeat what you know already? Dr. Reichel's already told you everything I ever confided in him. What do you want, a written confession that I shot Captain Claney in the back? Well, I did. Write it down. I'll sign it. Is that what you want?
If you don't mind.
Details? You like details?
Look,
May 6, 1943, 2 days before we took Tunis, out in patrol. Write it down. I hated him. He was a lousy dog, arrogant, insulting. All right, there it is. Motive, time, place, everything. You satisfied?
No, I'm just tired. If you feel like talking, talk to the police, not me. I never saw either you or Dr. Reichel before tonight. My name is Stone. I'm with the Star. If you doubt it, pick up the phone and find out.
The papers? Reichel told the papers?
Well, you get this into your head and you'll have it in a nutshell. Reichel never told anybody. All I know is what you've just spouted. You sit here like a broken-down ham, dramatizing yourself, dreaming up things that never happened, making like a martyr, feeling sorry for yourself, leaving your wife at home, worried sick about you. You got a family to think of. Now, go on and get your coat. I'm taking you home.
I guess maybe you're right. I've been acting like a fool, haven't I? I'm sorry.
You'll feel lots better in the morning, Mr. Matthews. Now, come on, let's go.
Yeah. I'll put things away first. May I have my gun?
You better let me keep it for a while.
Oh, you don't have to worry, Mr. Stone. Not anymore. This note on the table, I was writing it to my wife when you arrived, telling her goodbye. Well, I changed my mind about dying.
Well, we all have our bad days. Shall we go?
Yeah. My gun, please. Oh, it's all right, really.
Well, okay. Here, I've taken out the cartridges. Souvenirs, you know.
Thank you. I'll put away these catalogs. Would you mind closing that window for me?
I walked over to the big window facing the street. It was wide open from the bottom. I reached up to close it just as a soft footstep sounded close behind me. And Matthews pushed me over the sill toward the street below.
May 29, 1950, 73 years ago, Nightbeat on this Monday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Larry Thor, Broadway is My Beat. From 70 years ago, May 30th, 1953, the Ruth Shea murder case. A fat redhead named Ruth Shea is found on the waterfront with 7 bullets in her body. Fat? We couldn't say that today. That's on tomorrow's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now the conclusion of Nightbeat, starring Frank Lovejoy, 73 years ago, May 29th, 1950.
And now back to Nightbeat and Randy Stone.
Life, they say, is a continual process of getting used to things we hadn't expected. Like, for instance, getting pushed out of a guy's office window. I hadn't figured Harlan Matthews was that far off the beam, but that, of course, was my fault. From a character as neurotic as Matthews, I should have expected anything.
Where'd that fella?
I guess I was out more than a couple of minutes because when I came to, a cop had evidently just arrived on the scene. Voices crowded through my head against a backdrop of pain. I I stared up at the moon shining brightly through a huge rip in the awning, and I tried to push myself up to a sitting position. The cop bent over.
Easy now, easy. I'll call an ambulance.
Wait a minute. Get Matthews.
Who?
Harlan Matthews, stamp dealer, 3rd floor. He pushed me.
Matthews, huh? Just wait here.
I took inventory of my legs and arms and found them in usable condition. I climbed to my feet. People crowded around, their voices blending in an unintelligible jumble of questions. I staggered through them toward the cab. Their faces swarmed about me, white and staring like faces in a nightmare. I reached out, found the door handle of my car. I opened it and got in. I sat there for a while, trying to reassemble my wits. My head throbbed with pain and my mouth was dry. I wanted a cold drink more than anything I could think of. So I found my keys and drove to the first drugstore I came to. It was the sight of the phone that made me remember Mrs. Matthews. She'd be anxious to know what happened. I had to tell her something. I rang her number.
Hello?
Mrs. Matthews, it's Randy Stone.
What happened? He didn't...
No, I got there in time.
Oh, thank God. Where is he?
Well, I thought he'd be home by now.
But he isn't. When did he leave?
Not long ago.
Well, when you left him, was he all right?
Oh, yeah, he was just swell. You ought to see me.
What?
I'll tell you what. I'll call Dr. Reichel right now and tell him the situation. He should be...
I got a call from Dr. Reichel just a little while ago.
Yeah?
That is, it came through a message service. They want Harlan to call Dr. Reichel right away. I called the doctor's office to find out why, but the doctor's not there. He's not at home either.
Well, why does Reichel want to see him? Didn't they tell you?
No. The message just said that it was very important.
I invested another nickel in a call to Dr. Reichel's office. There was no answer, so I sat down at the counter and had a cup of coffee. I felt somewhat better by now, although my head still throbbed and I still found it hard to unscramble my thoughts. I went back to the phone booth and called Dr. Reichel's home. Perhaps he'd returned by now.
What is it, please? Dr. Reichel residence?
Has Dr. Reichel come in yet?
No, Dr. Reichel not here now.
Look, has there been anybody at the house to see him within the last hour or so?
No visitor. Too late. You call tomorrow, maybe. Yes? Goodbye.
I checked with Mrs. Matthews once again to see if Matthews had returned yet. He was still missing. However, since my last call, the police had dropped in. They wanted to talk to him about pushing someone out of a window. Someone who'd driven away from the scene without leaving his name, address, or license number.
You were with him, Mr. Stone. He couldn't have done it.
Oh, yes. Utterly fantastic. You'd better try to get some sleep, Mrs. Matthews. I'll ring you if I locate him. Good night. I headed out toward Dr. Reichel's residence on the northwest side, wondering just how foolish I was not to send the police out instead. Matthews did more than just pass from mania to depression. He'd made the round trip. The doc had been looking for him, but now he could be looking for the doc. I stepped on the gas. It was quite a drive to Dr. Reichel's home. When I got there, it turned out to be a sizable estate with an impressive driveway turning through the moonlit grounds. The dark hulk of a battered sedan stood parked near the head of the walk that led to the veranda steps. I pulled up behind it. I got out, and I gave it the once-over. I touched the top of the radiator. It was still warm. A parade of maples lined the paved walk. Ahead, the house stood dark and still. I lifted my hand to the doorbell.
Don't.
Well, hello, Matthews. Kind of thought you might be around.
What are you doing here, Mr. Stone?
When I hit the pavement, I kept bouncing until I finally landed out here.
I hardly expected to find you quite the same as when I left you.
Oh, I'm not. I'm smarter. Next time I get that gun you're holding, I'll know enough not to give it back to you.
Next time? There isn't going to be a next time, Mr. Stone. Not for you or for your Confederate, the doctor.
Oh, yeah, of course, you could be faking. I took the cartridges out of that thing once.
Yeah, so you did. I might have forgotten to reload it. Why don't you try to take it away from me and find out? Well, come on. Is it loaded or isn't it? Make me show you.
Well, if I did, it might arouse the neighborhood, don't you think? You might not be able to hang around here waiting for Dr. Reichel.
Yes, Mr. Stone, I've already thought of that, or you'd have been dead by now. Unless, of course, the gun isn't loaded. I'm willing to let you force me to show you. All you have to do is take one step toward me. Just one step, Mr. Stone. One single step. And you'll know the answer.
Before I do, maybe you could give me some other answers. Answers to a few things I still don't understand.
Indeed? What, for instance?
Well, for one thing, I still don't understand just what good it'll do you to kill either Dr. Reichel or me.
You know the answer to that, you and him both.
I wish I did.
He said he was my friend. That would help me if I talked, so I told him. Then I saw him talking to the FBI man at the federal building, and I knew I'd made a mistake, that he betrayed me.
If he had, would you be free now? Figure it out.
I have. They're just waiting to round up some witnesses who saw me shoot Captain Claney.
You're wrong, Matthews. You're dead wrong. Reichel hasn't told anyone at all, and he never will. Same goes for me.
I only wish to heaven that were true, because if it were, I'd never have a better reason for killing you than now, before you do have a chance to talk. But unfortunately, I'll never be sure that you haven't talked.
Well, kill me, there's one thing you can be sure of. Star billing in an execution party.
Really? But right now, it's you who are the star, Mr. Stone. Or maybe this gun isn't really loaded after all. Come on, find out. Give me an excuse for pulling the trigger. Look, there he comes. Back. Against the wall. Stay where you are. Right there.
A cold wind rustled the maples as the big car came to a halt at the head of the drive. Hidden by the trees, its lights blinked out. By the veranda rail, a dozen feet away, Matthews crouched, gun raised. The trees hid whoever it was coming up the walk as the moonlight and shadow danced among the leaves.
Come on, Reichel, come on. Keep coming, come on.
Matthews.
A little closer, a little closer.
In another moment or two, his target would be out of the shadow of the trees into the bright moonlight. Matthews!
Huh?
Those men with him.
Oh,
hiding among the trees, see? They're moving.
Where?
There. That shadow there, and over there, and over there. Can't you see them?
Yes, yeah.
They're covering him. He knows you're here.
I'll kill him.
They'll get you first. You haven't a chance.
No.
Drop that gun. Drop it.
They'll never get me. Never.
He thrust the gun to his own head and pulled the trigger 6 times before he ever got to it.
They'll never get me. Nobody.
But, Mr. Stone, you mean he was trying to ambush me with an empty gun?
Yes, Doctor. Then he tried to blow out his brains with it.
Oh, poor fellow.
Looks to me like he's gone off his trolley, but for good. Look at him lying there, groveling in the dirt as though he were trying to hide.
Or dig himself in. Yes, he's living a moment of the war all over again. Harlan, stop it. Stop it.
Didn't you see May 6, 1943?
Well, how did you know?
He told me. I guess Captain Claney got his revenge after all.
What do you mean?
Well, he shot Claney in the back and thought he got away with it, but look at him now.
Oh, Mr. Stone. This whole nightmare in the poor fellow's mind started when he observed me making an inquiry at Army Information Headquarters here. I was trying to locate the one man who could cure him.
Who?
Why, Captain Willard Claney, of course.
What's that?
But the reason I arrived here so late is that I've been wandering about looking for Matthews. I wanted to tell him that I finally succeeded. I found Claney.
You mean that...
The man's alive and well, working in a bank in Spokane. I spoke to him tonight on long distance.
Well, that's one for the book. Matthews must have just wounded him and then thought that he...
Matthews didn't even hit him.
He didn't hit him?
Doctor.
Wait a minute. Harlan.
Yes?
I think he's aware. Harlan, do you hear me?
Dr. Reichel.
Did you hear what I said? Captain Claney is alive.
What?
You didn't kill him. Do you understand? You did not kill him.
You're lying.
No, I can prove it to you. Now, we can call him up. You can speak to him yourself. He's alive.
No, I shot him.
You thought you shot him, Harlan, but you missed. You missed.
No, I saw him drop. I saw him, and he dropped.
Oh, yes. Claney dropped all right, but not from your bullet. No. When I spoke to him on the phone tonight, he said that the only wound he received was a shell splinter in the chest. Why, he doesn't even remember a sergeant named Harlan Matthews.
What? You're joking.
No, Harlan, it's the truth.
I didn't kill him.
Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, huh, Doc?
Well, for him, there's still a long, hard road ahead and plenty of work to do. But at least, Mr. Stone, we've reached the beginning.
Well, dawn is just around the corner, and the city lights are going out street by street, like the lights in some people's minds. Yes, they say the truth is a great mental healer. And I guess it is, if you can bear to face it. Okay, so let's face it. Copy, boy.
Nightbeat, starring Frank Lovejoy, is produced and directed by Warren Lewis and edited by Larry Marcus. Tonight's story was written by Irwin Ashkenazi with music by Frank Worth. The part of Harlan Matthews was played by Jeff Corey. Jeanette Nolan was Mrs. Matthews, and the doctor, Ben Wright. Listen next week at this same time and every week as Randy Stone searches through the city for the strange stories waiting for him in the darkness.
And this is your Wheaties man, Frank Martin, inviting you to listen also on Tuesday, that's tomorrow night, to the premiere of the Penny Singleton Show on the Wheaties Big Parade. See you then.
May 29th, 1950, Nightbeat here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We thank you so much for making us a part of your day. It's always a delight to come here and do these shows here on your favorite station. Now, I would like to encourage you to go to our webpage, which is classicradio.stream, classicradio.stream. Now, if you go to classicradio.stream, you can stream our shows on demand. We produce 21 hours of classic radio theater each and every week, and that is your station may not carry all the hours. We understand that. We're glad that they were on this radio station just because they do it. You can get our shows there. You can also find lists of places that have our shows available via podcast, so you can download the shows to listen to them at your convenience. I would also ask you to, our social media links are there as well. You can also find out how to build a classic radio collection of your own. And if you're so inclined, you can buy me a copy. Now, that buy me a copy money helps us maintain our distribution channels and helps us maintain helps us acquire additional classic radio productions to bring to you here. That's at classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Monday. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.